Let us know when we're ready. Okay, you're good to go with live streaming.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'd like to call our meeting to order at 5:39 p.m. The Amity Board of Education Communications Committee meeting. The first item on our agenda is approval of our minutes from our March 11th meeting. Any changes or edits? None on my end. Okay. All right.
So we would need a motion to approve. Oh, Donna, hang on, Donna, let's see if I can unmute you.
Donna, can you hear?
Yes, I think she's just stuck on mute.
Oh, okay.
Let's try this again.
Okay, now can you?
Dana made the motion to accept the
we're good.
All right, great. The next item on our agenda.
Hang on, we need to do a vote. So,
Yep.
in favor, Carol.
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
And Dana.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. Next is public comment. I don't.
We didn't receive any
public comment. And the next item is preparation for the BOE budget Q&A session.
So this will be sort of how the virtual ones will get run. So I will actually have my camera off and I'll be renamed as Amity host because I'm not supposed to be part of it. So we're skirting a little bit, but there's just no other way to run it. I'm having a hard enough time doing it on my own as it is. The participants, when they come in, will be on mute. When we're ready to start, we can actually admit the entire waiting, or they'll be in a waiting room. We can admit them all at once. So we'll probably admit people, right at the start time at 7. And then we'll just have to prep them that, after we sort of give kind of the overview and we switch to Q&A, at least if it's virtual, they would have to do their little raise their hand icon, and then I would be able to call on, to ask them to unmute, and then I can remute them when they are all done with their question.
Yeah. So Jen, I actually so I connected with Sudhir last night to talk about that last week, and he asked me if you were going to join. And also last night, I think up until this point, I didn't realize that after last night, you wouldn't be able to join or respond. So I'm actually having second thoughts about us having like it just being us, just because, people might have very detailed questions that we may not be in the best position to answer. So I just wanted to share that, bring that up in this space and just see what, thoughts, I don't know, Dana or Donna, if you have thoughts. And I know that when I asked Sudhir, he was like, I think he sort of agreed and said, he could do the 28th, 29th, or 30th, because I was like, oh yeah, Jen will be there. But I didn't realize that like Jen cannot talk during these sessions.
Well, I mean, and that's why I thought that it would be best if there was a communications committee member and a finance committee member, because the finance committee members have spent far more time in the budget. I honestly don't think you're going to get detailed questions, because I don't think, outside of somebody who's from the town finance committees and they've already had their chance to come to me and Terry, you have people who have read the budget document more than you have read the budget document as board members. So I think, Kat, when she drafted the question, she drafted it from the perspective of, I'm a, sort of a PTSO mom, and this is what I want to know about the budget. So if you kind of look at her questions, I think that it's reflective of what you would expect to get from the audience that we're putting it out to. And I think it's, you can come up with some scripts, that like the purpose of the meeting is really to answer high level questions, to encourage people to vote in the referendum, to make people feel comfortable with the process that the board goes through to develop the budget. That, detailed specific questions around, say, financial practices, or I don't know, particular programs, would it, that wouldn't be appropriate for the board. Just think of it in terms of operation versus but like if it's a real detailed operational question, maybe more about the budgeting process, then that's not what board members are necessarily going to be involved in. That's what our director of finance is involved in. But I mean, I don't know. There are no questions in the Google form. Nobody submitted anything. So I don't even have a gauge of what people might ask.
So, you mentioned the AFC, but Sudhir is part of the AFC, and he was uncomfortable. He's uncomfortable joining without you. So I'll just say that. Dana, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was concerned as well. And Jen said she couldn't be part of it, so I just told that to Sean. I said, I'm a little uncomfortable. Are you? And he said, no. So I'm going to leave it up to that. I have the one-page form, the one-page flyer that Jen has sent out about the budget to, I guess, the public and whoever else budget's been showing up. And I'll take that with me. I was hoping we would get some type of scripted questions. I can go back. Are the questions that the PCSO people were talking about, are they in the meeting notes? Because I did read them, but I thought I saw something in there about them.
So what I can do for you guys is, so Kat put together like a list of like very basic questions. And then what I could do is, remember every year where we had assembled like a document where people could ask questions and Terry and I would answer? We have like 2 years worth of that, and the numbers might change slightly because some of them are specific to the budget, but some of them are about that high level process of like the budgeting. So you could have all of that as resources to refer to. Let me pull that stuff together tomorrow morning and send it to everybody so you could see kind of how much information we sort of have on just questions and answers. It's probably a good like 10 pages of ideas.
That's better than nothing. I think that would be something to fall back on.
And Dana, I'm letting you into the meeting now because it seems that you're here.
Once I'm in, I'll hang up, Carol.
Okay. Yep.
All right. And then I have to ask you to unmute, I think. Okay. All right. Everybody should be good.
Yeah.
Oh, somehow you got muted again. All right. Hang on. I need to figure out how to unmute everybody because this is just not working. All right. And okay, Dana, you should be able to unmute yourself now without me asking.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome.
Now we're all set.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Jen, can you remind us how this came about? The idea of having board members have web forums.
Well, it was, remember, so as of last night, we can't advocate for the budget anymore. We can't say, we, meaning me, Terry, the principals, we can't say this is a great budget. It's an awesome budget because we're going to get a TESOL teacher. Oh, it's fabulous because we put in this extra money to support field trips, or to have the late bus run for the middle school kids. We can't advocate for people voting for the budget. Board members can. So, what ends up happening between now and the referendum date is we send out the date of the referendum. That can go in the principal's newsletters, and we mail out the explanatory text, which is very dry, and it doesn't really list, like, it's, this is how many FTEs we have, this is what we added, this is what we cut, these are the major drivers, and this is what the budget looks like for the town. So it doesn't have the kind of passion behind it to get people out to vote. And we have had, every single, with the exception of last year when I think it was a lower budget, and I think we have run sometimes, obviously close votes, and a close vote isn't comfortable for us. And obviously if it ends up being a no vote, it just means cuts. So it was really the idea of trying to close this gap between now and the referendum, where you can still talk about it in a positive way, that it's doing good things for kids, that it's going to benefit not just high school students and middle school students, but facilities work and long-term 5-year plans in that area benefit the kids who are currently in the elementary schools. It's getting that messaging out, because we can't do that anymore.
So if we had these meetings before yesterday's public hearing, we could have had to.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe
Yes.
for next year, let's try to do something before this so that we're not in a predicament. And I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe no one's going to ask questions. Maybe we're not going to have anybody come to our live session. I have no idea. I think people are going to come, because I've heard rumblings of people saying that they want more information. I haven't gotten specifics, but I just think it'd be better for you to be part of this.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and I was going to ask Carol how comfortable she is without Jen or anyone from administration being a part of this, because personally, I would not be comfortable answering questions around the budget.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable, and maybe I totally missed that. Like yesterday was Jen mentioned it, but I just didn't. I thought it was like sometime later on in April. Yeah, I think also too, just again, we don't know who's going to show up, what questions they'll have, right? But if you do have people show up, and what we don't want is for people to show up and have questions, and they're like, well, you're useless,
Right.
like what?
Right.
I took my time. Mine is virtual, but like, I'm here, and like, well, what questions can you answer? I'm glad to hear that Sean is like very comfortable, right?
Yeah, he was like, I'll say what I can, and that's it. I think,
Yeah, that's the other position. It's like the framing, right? Like this is like high level board member, but also like parent, community member. Detailed questions, happy to take back to the administration. So I don't know. I am torn. I will say that I do have some discomfort, knowing that you or Terry like cannot be there. So
Right, and we still have the PTOs, so we can still send out information if we choose not to move forward with these. And because I think the last thing you want to do is have the community feel as if they don't have their questions answered, and the perception of the board to not be in the know. And of course, we're not going to know the details. We're not going to know line item by line item.
But again, I don't think you're
level.
going to get those types of questions.
I don't know, but is that a risk we want to take?
So now you have a decision to make, because you have a Q&A this Thursday night at 7 that has been sent out to all of the PTA. Now, I don't know how much they shared it. I know that we could see it on our like PTSO pages. but is it something that you want to pull back from? Because then we have to get that messaging out. It's an easy, I mean, or we go forward and see what happens.
What are your thoughts, Dana?
And I don't know, I kind of feel like it's a bad look if we pull back. I think we do it, and I think, maybe in the beginning, just say this is a high level, question and answer session. If we can't answer your questions, we will bring you answers to these questions. You can leave us your email or whatever, and we can get the answer and give it back to you. I think pulling out is a bad look. I think if we get a question that we can't answer, it would be better to say, this is something that we have to get back to you on, and leave it at that. I don't think we're going to get a lot of high level. My first inclination was we weren't going to even get people. Mine's in person. So to get people to actually get out of their houses, or, once they're in from all their events and after school and work and whatever, I don't even know if anyone's going to show up, but I did hear a lot of buzz about it in the town after it went out to PTOs. And so then I was like, but again, everyone, it sounds great in theory to go to this, but at the moment of it happening, it's like, I'm starving. I just got in from work. I don't have, who knows?
Yeah.
I think it's a bad look to pull back. I think it's a better look to say, I don't have an answer for you on this. This is a high level question and answer session. I will get an answer to you.
And maybe so I think if you write sort of an introductory paragraph, and Carol, I mean, you first of all, you can say, I am only one board member. I am not I'm here to sort of walk people through this, but I'm obviously not all 13 board members. So I'm going to answer you as best I can. Right. But I'm not going to be able to necessarily provide the answers that all 13 of us could provide, because you don't have 13 collective brains sitting there. And then I think, and I think, again, if you say that it's going to be a high level overview, that obviously the school administration, particularly the superintendent and the business manager, have many more details, as to how the budgeting process works. And, if there are questions that can't be answered, give them the, standard Board of Ed email address, and they could send their questions in, and I'll get them and I can answer them. And I know we hate sort of faking it, but if you say, we had questions open, for submission, or we're going to start with some basic questions, and use the ones that Kat developed, because they're low enough level that they'll set the expectation for the bar of what you're going to be able to answer. And
where are those questions?
I will send them to you guys. I'm working on my laptop, and so it's hard for me to run the Zoom and pull the files at the same time. But when the meeting's over,
because I think that's going to be important for us to have. Carol, are you by yourself? So Sudhir doesn't want to do it?
I am by myself. I mean, it's like I said, I'm torn, but I'm also like not new to sort of. I'm happy. I can set the expectations. I think my worry is like people coming away feeling like, well, that was a waste of my 20 minutes.
Right.
But they can drop in, drop out. But I think if I'm going to do it, sharing some questions to begin with is the way to go, to not leave an hour of empty space for people to just dig in the recesses of their brain to come up with whatever, great or nonsensical questions that they might have.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I feel more comfortable having Sean, because Sean's on the Board of Finance. So
well,
Sean,
yeah, so that's the thing. Sudhir's he's not available tomorrow. Donna Schlank cannot. She's on the AFC as well. And actually, Jen, I don't know that the week of the 28th is going to work. I don't know that Sudhir will agree to a session without you, or maybe if we do host these two sessions, he'll circle back to say, what was your experience? Because
Yeah.
I think he shares the same concern.
So, and then wait, I just had a thought and I lost it. It'll come back to me. Don't worry. So you were saying something but yeah, I will. I think, and remember, I think we designed this. I think when Kat originally sort of wrote sort of the game plan, it was for an hour. And then based on your feedback of making it short and sweet in like 30 minutes, I think she scaled back on sort of the questions and is essentially anticipating, a set of sort of opening questions. And when those are done, a very brief opportunity for people, I mean, you obviously don't want to cut people off, but I don't think it was intended to be this like a long 2 hour type of meeting with tons of really detailed questions. If honestly, if they had wanted that, they should have come to the public hearing last night, because that would have been the place where me and Terry can like really dive into that. So this, I think maybe that's like, again, it's really about your chance to advocate for why it's a budget that, deserves the community's support. And I know Kat has like a little closing paragraph that she wrote, sort of a thank you very much for attending type of thing. If you have any more questions, this is where you go. And then sort of please, we really hope to have your yes vote on May 6th, kind of the plug for the actual purpose behind all of this, to really kind of get people to vote in favor of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, I see this as like an opportunity for people to like ask questions, more so than like, and get them to vote.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I don't see my position as like, not at least publicly, like, yes, but here are the great things that like the budget is supporting. Here's why it's at, this level. Here's what the percent increase is really due to. But I think beyond that, like, the fact that we're having the session to begin with, I think is a clear signal that like, yes, we want you to vote and support the budget. But I'm just trying to make room for like, for folks who may not be like, yes, I'm in agreement with the 3 point, I can't remember where we are, but
2.93.
2.93. 2.93.
And we'll get a sense. I mean, Dana, I sort of have the same feeling as you. I mean, think about it. Our spring community forums, which we run now for 2 years, have very low attendance. Thursday night is another production of the play. It's sports all over the place because everything has been rained out. So I really don't know what kind of attendance we're going to get. It may help that it's virtual because people can join from other locations. So that might be the difference between yours, but we'll have a sense of like the fact that there's no questions submitted at this point is also telling. They've had that ability to submit questions and there aren't any. So I really don't know what to expect.
So Dana, you raised a good point about like, at least pulling out for like Thursday night is like a bad look. I think
It's a bad look.
Yeah, I think Jen and I had a really good meeting with the PTO and PTSO like leaders. I was impressed that they showed up.
Yeah.
Many of them showed up and they were really engaged. And I think it's maybe the beginning of sort of a closer or better sort of relationship and, I don't know, open up lines of communication, right, between them and the board. So for that reason, I think primarily, I'd be willing to host alone Thursday. I think if it doesn't go well, or like it goes, a different way, or like people really want really detailed questions, I think we should revisit the additional like Dana and Sean, unless Sean and Dana are like, nope, we don't care. Like,
Well, I think the other thing, I think if nobody shows up or if we get one person, we can also revisit if we do anything on at High Plains after vacation. Because I mean, if people can't come to a virtual meeting, which is more
Right.
convenient than going
Right.
out, I'm not
Yeah.
even sure what we would get for an in-person, but at least, I can hold off on sending any info to the PTSOs until that point.
And
So-
maybe for next year, we do one virtual before our public hearing. Because that'll give them the opportunity to have you behind us for answers. And we may not get anybody. Like nobody came last night, so we may
Yeah.
not get anybody. Maybe we just do one virtual next
I-
year before.
I think we'll get a couple of PTO or PTSO members. I mean, maybe a handful.
We
I
may.
suspect we will. But Jennifer, what I think I would need is like, because I think that people might have questions about like, what are the things? I think some people may just have questions about like, what's happening? Like, what are the things the budget supports? Like, what are the great things happening at Amity, right? Like, what can I look forward to for my children? Yeah, I feel fairly certain that like a question like that. So if I could get, a couple of talking points about like I know the library renovation is happening and like that would be great, and I can talk about that like on my own. I think I know enough about it and like can talk about like the benefit of like a beautiful library that's like designed in a way to like enhance like use by the students, things like that. But like other things that might be good to mention, right? So that parents of elementary school children might be like, oh, that's fantastic. That, yes, happy to support this budget that's like, making these infrastructure changes or whatever that my kid one day is going to benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can, and again, we can focus in on things that at the middle schools, because that is what would benefit elementary parents first. And my presentation last night had a bunch of those things. So like, obviously, the library media centers would be upgraded at the middle schools also. We're looking to do some improvements to middle school athletic fields. You lead with those two, you're in good shape because that makes everybody happy. And then adding the late bus so that kids at the middle schools have an additional day where they can either get extra help or participate in more extracurricular activities. Adding some support to offset the cost of field trips, which they take a ton of field trips in the middle school. Supporting the one-to-one devices, because as soon as they come into 7th grade, right, they get their one-to-one device. That's not necessarily everybody's experience. And if they do, they're getting Chromebooks, not like really, actual computers. Things like the TESOL teacher probably don't have as much movement because that hits such a limited group of people. But like tutor.com is, that's going to be able to be accessed by everybody. So the ability for kids to have, access to an online tutoring resource ubiquitously if they need additional help outside of school is something that we added new. And so, yeah, those are sort of like some of those middle schooly types of things. Because yeah, I think, and we can talk a little bit about the high school because obviously we have other parents there, but if we're getting broader community, elementary parents want to know what's coming for the middle school.
All right.
So yeah, I will send all, like you and Dana and Sean, it's going to be a pile of information, probably a lot to process, but I'll give you a priority order of what I think the order you should look at it and what I think it helps with. And I think it will be enough information that I think it will get you through a 30-minute question and answer session.
Oh, is it 30 minutes?
That's how we designed it, because we originally said an hour was too long. That was asking
Yeah,
parents
it is. An hour's too long.
too
Okay.
much. So, and again, I think you can open up with that. Just say, hey, we just really wanted to give you 30 minutes of our time to answer some questions about the budget. Again, I think when you structure it like that, it sends a message that this is not about going through the weeds and going to line item number 853 and figuring out what it is.
All right. Anything else on this item? Okay, so we'll look for that information. So Kat, the one pager or two pager that Kat put together, and then those
Yeah.
things that we can mention that would be helpful to help people sort of connect, benefit, right?
Yep.
For their future Amity students. All right. The next item on our agenda is discussion of the spring community forum. So that is scheduled for May 5th.
Yeah.
I think it's 6:30 to 8, Jen?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So wow, we're less than a month away actually.
We are. And so the good news is I think I have put together the panelists. And I will, during spring break next week, work on sort of an overview presentation of, sort of like that what's great at Amity, did you know kind of theme that we had talked about.
Yep.
And I'm going to try to cover, I'll sort of group it into the 3 A's, but then I'll pull extracurricular stuff, like clubs and, sort of all the clubs and activities that we have. I'll hone in on some of our unusual classes. And so I'll just kind of build that. My intent is to make it like at most a 10-minute presentation. I am not sitting on the panel because I'm probably a little too far removed from sort of being able to talk to this. So I can actually help facilitate the community forum. So like I can run the questions if we get pre-submitted questions, because I know that's always been sort of hard for everybody to sort of manage and then kind of direct and answer them. So I can definitely help and I don't think Shannon is going to sit on the panel either, so she might be available too. So in this respect, we can actually be more useful to you guys this time
I
around.
think it would be really good to make sure some of the things that you tap on are like the bee farm that we have that people probably don't know, but all the things that no one knows about. The bee farm, I keep going back to it, but our automotive program is ridiculous compared to some high schools that have nothing. The construction program is amazing. Like Carlo, he got into most of the schools, and I know it's because he has so much construction experience where there's not a lot of construction courses offered at other high schools. So, and these are things I didn't know, so I'm assuming a lot of people don't know them. I also think one thing that is really cool, and again, these are things that touch me, but I still think they're really cool things to bring to the table because most schools don't highlight them or don't have them. I know a lot of schools do have that class act organization because is it required? Is it a requirement?
No, but we all like earning the Michaels Cup, so it's one of the quick ways to get it. And it does actually help our captains' councils to kind of just generate more positive vibes at some of our
And it's a
events.
great thing to highlight. I wish someone highlighted it when Carlo came in because this is really sad. Carlo was actively sought after to be on that team or that organization. And he was so overwhelmed as a freshman with baseball and just school that he just was like, I don't have time for this. I can't do it. And then he came to me and he was like, I really wish but it was hard. He has a learning disability. So just managing baseball, managing homework, and managing being in school was a whole lot for him. But that is a super organization that, number one, looks amazing on your resume. Number two, as a parent of a kid who actually received a gift from them because he's such a good fan supporter, it makes you feel good, and it makes me really feel good about the school. So those are just some things I think we should touch on. I know they're not major things, and I know they touched me, but I didn't know a lot about them before I came in. I didn't even know about the extent of your automotive program until I did the
The visiting day,
Yes.
elected officials day.
yes, I didn't know
Yeah.
about that until I did that tour. So, and I'm sure, I don't know, maybe there's other things that you guys can bring that didn't touch me at the school, but I think they're good things to bring up.
Yeah, nope, I just wrote the list. So those will be some of the things that we'll highlight and just kind of mention. And we have it's so it's sort of hard because we have so many things we do to try to pull together the list of panelists who can then kind of like speak very broadly to all of these things. But we've got a good eclectic representation. And we tried to, yeah, put in people who wear multiple hats at times. So then that way they can talk from different perspectives.
So how do we think this is gonna work out for the next forum? So the topic is like, well, did you know, and sort of highlighting like all the amazing things related to our 3As. Like, how do we invite questions, like in the room, people in the room, and also, I guess, how do we frame things in a way that invites questions? I guess is what I'm asking. Instead of it being like
Us just
people
telling
attend
people.
and like us talking, right?
Yeah.
So it's like panel talking.
So again, I can have Kat work on that. She can come up with some sort of pre-loaded questions. Like even very simple things like how do kids join these organizations? How do you decide what, extracurricular activities kids can have? Because we can talk about that. Questions like, well, how do you balance doing all of these extra things? Like that's a good question for the kids. Because we have some kids sitting on the panel, how do you balance being in these things and still doing your homework and everything like that?
The other thing too, which is really cool, is Amity allows kids, if you come up with a great club idea, and as long as it's legal, let's say, they'll put the club together. Like that's a pretty cool thing. If you come up with some, crazy club that you want and there's enough people, they'll do it.
Yeah, and I love being able to answer that because people seem to think the adults come up with the clubs and the adults have nothing to do with the clubs.
Right.
But then they get mad too sometimes when clubs die. Well, clubs die because kids lose interest in them.
Right, right.
And so it's that beautiful ebb and flow, but it's really driven by the students, and being able to say that is a good thing. And it's one of those common misconceptions that we're always addressing. So yeah, I think we can come up with, even if it's like 6 or 7 questions that launch it. And I find that when you guys ask the questions to the panelists and get the conversation started, then if people are in attendance, they will start to ask more questions.
I hate to ask this, but I'm gonna. So our student panelists, are they the top of the class?
No, they're not. But there's still going to be kids who are involved in a lot of things because we want to make sure that they can answer questions about a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
I get that. I just want the average kid coming to Amity to see how they can do so well there. Because, I always hear too, the top of the class, they get all the attention, and, the bottom of the class doesn't. And I will forever be an advocate of Amity, that my kid came in with a pretty intense learning disability and is able to thrive at Amity and feel like he's doing good and part of it, and he's not one of those kids that's on 42 clubs, the student council, A+ student. I think that's important for kids coming in to see, hey, I really can find a home here even though I'm not the top of the class. Because I know myself, when I see people and they're like these super high achievers, it's like, oh, well, okay, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'll be good there. But when you see someone that you can relate to, then it's like, hey, this is cool.
Yeah, I actually, to sort of frame it, what Andre and I talked about is finding a kid who was really deeply involved in athletics, a kid so who can answer a lot about sports, a kid
Right.
who's really deeply involved in arts, so they can answer a lot about the arts. And then the academics, we talked about kids who just do either extracurriculars or who are really taking advantage of our elective programs. So that way we get
Good. And
the
your elective
academics.
program is great. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of because we were like, how do we even pick? And so
Yeah.
that's kind of how we framed it. So
Yeah.
he's
Good.
out looking for those three representatives.
I
And then
think that's fabulous.
the middle school kids are they're just kids who've done like cool things like lately. And again, sort of unprompted, just part of like the regular stuff that they do in school, but sort of looked at it in a different way. And so yeah, so we'll see how it goes.
Do we want, I mean, so typically like our target audience is parents, right? So do we think that this might be a forum that we're like parents and kids? I mean, because I'm hearing Dana talk about kids being able to see themselves, right, and relate to other kids. And if that's the case, then we should like.
Well, we've always advertised our community forum and student happenings. So Janet and Sophia, our board reps, have always put the community forums into
Okay.
student happenings and invited the students to participate.
Okay.
Are they
Ben
both seniors?
Avia did it last year. Like they've always kind
Put it
of
out there.
regularly done that. And then and again, where I think we could lean into the invitation is extending it to that PTSO list that I have now and sharing it out with those elementary school PTSO parents also.
Yeah, that'd be good.
So that I think could increase the audience.
Okay.
Are our student board reps students, are they seniors, both of them?
No, Janet is a junior, so she'll carry on to next year, and then we elect the new junior, current sophomore, like in the next
Yeah.
month or so.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. So the only other thing I have on that is, you know, I think if it's the board's forum, I think like maybe Dana or Donna can do the questions, but I think this in terms of like sort of visibility, it should be like the board.
So we've always had a board member sit on the panel, so I haven't picked who that is, because I figured that could be up to you guys to decide. I think anybody who is right now a current parent whose kids are living the Amity life would be good because then you can talk about, sort of how they get involved, how you support them as a parent, where your roles come in and where it becomes just kind of like what they do. So I think, that you have a variety of number of people that can actually sit on the panel and board members have tended not to often answer questions, but every once in a while something comes where I think you can chime in. And certainly we have a couple panelists who also are parents. So we can even structure a question around that about sort of parent involvement and encouraging your kids to participate, but without maybe overwhelming them with needing to do extracurriculars and how you provide support and stuff like that. So we can probably structure a question. But yeah, I think a board member can sit on the panel also.
Yeah. That board member won't be me. But we can think about who else might be interested in like their kids involved in the arts or like athletics or something.
Well, so Donna has a student in the district. Carol, you do. Dana, you do. Christina does. Carla does. Sort of going down the line.
Yeah.
Sean's
Right.
are too young. Kathy's doesn't have any. Mike, oh, that's right, Mike.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you've got at least I think 7 people that you can choose from who could sit on the panel.
Perfect. Well, we should probably ask them soon. Any suggestions before we move on to our last item? Some people to ask. Dana, do you want to
I would
on the
do
panel?
it if there was enough interest. I wouldn't I wouldn't not want to do it. I would do it if there was enough interest, but if you need me to be part of you, then that's fine.
No, that's
I mean,
fine.
Dana,
No,
I think if you did it, like I said, me and Shannon are there to sort of help run the stuff in the background. If we had, if Carol is asking the questions, if I'm kind of paying attention, if people are submitting stuff live, and I can at least help with that. And then if there's one other person who can just kind of help sort of walk the room, whether it's Donna, Mike, or Kathy, that will probably we should be able to run it fine. I do think we'll have enough hands on deck on this one.
yeah. So Dana, do you want to? I think it would be
Yeah,
great.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Awesome.
All right. And then we'll same sort of like format for like advertising, like the
Mhm.
number of
Yeah.
weeks, like that.
Just this time I'll send all of the stuff out to that bigger PTSO list.
I think we'll get more, especially for this topic. And it will be spring. We may get a fair number of attendees. All right. So the last item on our agenda is discussion of topics for the BOE chair letter.
Yeah, and I haven't actually worked on that because we're a week ahead of, like, this meeting was the first Monday and not the second Monday, so I haven't even gotten to that. So that was just a placeholder, but I haven't really thought about it yet.
Okay. Yeah, because next week is spring break.
Yeah.
But if we have topics, besides sort of stuff that comes from our like board meeting, like things that are highlighted,
I mean, obviously we'll put in the budget
Yeah.
information now that so I can write certain stuff in there using some of that explanatory text and things like that. So we'll definitely have a budget blurb because that's the last newsletter that gets published before the budget.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what else we have. I think we could bring up that we have a first read of both the cell phone policy and the school climate policy because the cell phone policy can be high interest. So I'll probably include that in there. I can't remember if in the last one I put that I'll have to look that we were getting the grant or that we're on that list for the grant for the libraries because it's legislative. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'll look because if I didn't, then I would probably put that, that we're part of the bill to get the money to do the library projects. And it just has to get voted by the state legislature. I do think I included that though in the last one. And trying to think of some of that other high level stuff. That's probably it. And this is when we get a lot more of like the rah-rah stuff, like our math team is going to New England's and I've got science kids all over the place and who are going on. So there's probably more of that information that I can put into the newsletter. It'll be the end of the run of Little Mermaids, so we'll have a sense of how successful that was. So we'll probably include a blurb about that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. And if there are any like athletic teams that make it to any, I don't know if it's that time of year for like.
Yeah, no, right now we're just starting. So yeah, we don't have anything really sports wise to do. So our, I can't remember. Our hockey team ended up, well, we didn't win states. So
They won the sections.
they did. They did. Yeah, I'll see what
And
I
I
can
think
do.
that was big because wasn't it, they hadn't won it in like 15 years or something?
It's SCC, yeah, and then even just to go and get to play at Quinnipiac in the state semifinals is sort of a big deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can have Ernie sort of help me craft something around that without leaving anybody else out. But yeah, but sports right now is in a little bit of a lull. We'll pick that up more later in the spring.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Anything else before we close? All right. there's nothing else, I'll call our meeting to close at 6:28 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
everybody. All right, bye-bye.
Right.